Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cryptid Crew Podcast. On this episode, we're going to dive into Ohio backpacker, hiker, Vendula Wendy Rose, who went missing on September the 24th and hasn't been heard from since. Stay tuned for this episode, Vanished, Cheaha State Park. Before we get started, if you've had an encounter, an experience, something unexplainable, or if you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email with your contact information at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. I'd like to welcome on our guest, photographer, staff writer for the Anniston Star, Ashley Morrison. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Good deal. Let me ask you this before we get started on the topic we're talking about. What do you specialize in? Crime reporting or crime investigation with the Anniston Star?
Not investigation. I do reporting, and then my main beat is called the Cops and Courts reporter. So what that entails is for things like trials, or if something happens, like there's a train derailment. In Anniston, yeah, it can get pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into this. This episode is going to be about the Ohio hiker Wendy Rose, or Vendula Wendy Rose, who's from Marysville, Ohio, who came down and went camping on September the 20th, I believe, or left her house on September the 20th, and came to Cheaha State Park to hike, and has not been heard from since. And I guess, let me ask you this first. How were you notified, or how did you find out about it?
I had seen a few people kind of mention me. You know how on Facebook you can put like the at symbol and then put your name? A few people had mentioned me on a missing persons page that was for the whole state of Alabama, where I forget, the Marysville, is it Marysville? Yeah, Marysville, Ohio police had put out a bolo for information or anything, like for the fact that she was missing, and that was the first time that I had heard of it. We didn't immediately cover it just because we weren't necessarily sure what was how it would kind of play out. But I think a day or two later was when we were like, oh, okay, this is definitely something we need to look into.
Right. Now, I read your article. Were you notified, I'm assuming after, it was after the first part of October, correct? Yes. And from what I've researched and found out about her, she's, this is not something that she did for the first time. She is an avid backpacker. From what I understand, she rides horses, and she also has a pilot's license. Is that correct?
I didn't know about the pilot license, but I do know that she's definitely a backpacker. She's someone that likes to. That was the whole reason why she wanted to come here to Alabama, was to hike the Pinhoti Trail, right?
Right. Correct. Yeah, she is. From what I understand, so she's definitely someone that knows her way around and has experience doing that. And what I'm interested in, I guess, or a little intrigued about, I don't believe a police report was done until about 11 days after, if I'm not mistaken, she had been heard from. And I'm going to go into the timeline just a little bit, and then I'll let you embellish on that. She had left Ohio on the 20th of September and arrived in Alabama at Cheaha State Park on the 23rd. And what I'm curious about, and I guess a lot of people are, is the fact that she left Alabama after hiking for a day and went to South Carolina. What do you think about that?
See, that I'm super confused about because, and not to kind of jump back and forth towards like the main timeline, but it doesn't necessarily make sense on like if her whole, like she had told her family, she had told everyone that she was coming to hike the Pinhoti Trail. So what did she do in South Carolina? Why was she only there? Like she essentially just drove there, turned around and came back. And there was like, there's no police report on like what she did there, even if she like stayed there to rest for a minute, nothing. Just she drove up there, literally turned right back around and came back.
And she came back and apparently parked her car at the Pinhoti Trailhead there just in Cheaha State Park on the 24th. And that's the last time she had been seen. I'm assuming I believe one of the park rangers, if I'm not mistaken, found her car parked there after how many days?
I'm unsure, but I do know that she was seen in Oxford before she parked her car up in the, like she had returned from South Carolina and she had stopped at either a convenience store or a grocery store or something to that, effect. And she had purchased a few things and then she drove up the mountain, and that's the last cause one of the things that we have here, is we have license plate readers that are, obviously it's pretty standard practice now, but, that was one of her last movements, was that she had went to some sort of convenience store type thing. And then she had driven up the mountain and there was no movement from her after that.
Right. I'm sitting here now looking at a picture. I'm assuming that's the selfie she took prior to her hiking when she was down here. And I noticed she has a personal locator beacon on. And typically, if most people don't know how those work, that's basically like a distress signal. It sends a signal to a satellite, and then to a station where they call the nearest, emergency or rescue teams or so forth. And I'm just intrigued or if she was hurt or something had happened, out on the trail, why wasn't that set off?
In your research for this case, and you said you had spoken to a few of the investigators, correct?
Yeah, I tried to. I spoke to some of the park employees there, and some of them were hesitant on talking about the subject. And one person did talk about it just briefly, and talked about how difficult it is once you get off the trail, if you're hiking, it all looks the same because it's the terrain is so rough, really wooded, rocky, and it's got, the Cheaha State Park, I think the wilderness there is around 7,000 acres, I believe, including Duggar Mountain and all that. And of course, Talladega National Forest itself is over 350,000 acres by itself. But yes, no, I had talked to them, and like I said, they were sort of hesitant, and tried to get in touch with Cleburne County Sheriff's Department, and did, and left my name with the lead investigator, but to no avail on getting a return call about any information.
So to my understanding is that one of the things that crossed law enforcement's mind was if she went up there with the intention to commit suicide. And I want to approach this matter lightly in case her family obviously listens to this, but what doesn't make sense to me is if she did do that, then like you said, if she's wearing that personal locator beacon, and she's taking these photos and things, her movements don't necessarily look like, I mean, some of them do with her leaving certain things in a safety deposit box and things like that. But why take the selfie? Why put the personal locator beacon on yourself? Why, if she was going up there for that reason?
Right. I agree with you on that. And I guess there were several different law enforcement agencies that had looked and searched and used drones, helicopters, and canines, cadaver dogs. And what intrigues me is there was, to what I understand, there was no scent picked up. So I don't know, that you hear a lot of people say different things, of course, and like you said, you want to approach this lightly, especially if the family's listening. But you don't know what that's rare for that to happen. I was in law enforcement for a little over 4 years, and a dog or two, if you have them there, if you have a couple of dogs, I can understand one of them maybe having I guess you could say a bad day, just like someone at work, but both of them know. And to pick up, and for the vehicle to be there and have no scent trace, or nothing, no trail picked up whatsoever, is really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that part. From what I did in my investigation, that part didn't kind of come up. Were you able to talk to the Marysville police?
I left a message with them as well, and did not get a return call from them. I believe it's the lead detective or officer that was doing the investigation, or that had done the missing persons report. But yes,
for all intents and purposes, it looks like she just completely disappeared.
Right. Yes, absolutely, without a trace. Like we had both said earlier, or mentioned, she's an avid backpacker. She's an outdoors person, and it's not the first time that she has, left and went hiking. And I don't know. I'm not sure. I know they had mentioned about notes in the vehicle that were abnormal, but I don't know anything about those notes. Do you?
No, not at all. And I tried to double back with a few investigators to try to see if I couldn't get in touch with some of my contacts at Cleburne County, but I never heard back from them either.
But going back to the disappearance and what could have happened, I don't believe there's Cheaha State Park and the Talladega National Forest. You have bears, maybe an occasional mountain lion, but nationwide, there's less than one person a year killed, average, by a bear and by a mountain lion. So that by itself is just, I kind of just tossed that out the window because the odds of that happening are very slim.
I actually have read somewhere, I used to live in Alaska, and I've read somewhere that it's more likely that you'll get killed by a vending machine than a bear. So,
wow. I did not know that one, but that's
You learn something every day. If it was, like you said, if it was some sort of bear or mountain lion attack or animal attack, or even if she fell and sprained her ankle or something and she wasn't able to get back up and she just kind of, stayed there, then the scent dogs would have been able to pick up on that. But it was like she was just plucked up from where she was, and then there's nothing else. It just completely, like, her scent just disappeared.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I feel the same way. Especially if you've been hurt, if you've shed blood, or anything like that. And if they get any kind of scent, they can pick up on that. And there's so many people that go missing. I had listened to a gentleman talk, Dave Pilatus, who does, I think, Missing 411, and it's pretty neat, and I'm not going to bring this up or go into this rather in depth, but a lot of the national parks and state parks and cave systems, he mapped off and has a geographical map of that. And a lot of the people that go missing in these parks, if you overlay it, it overlays on top of these state parks and these national parks, and a lot of them have cave systems as well. So don't know what to think. There's several different theories, but do you have any input on that, or have you dove into that any?
I haven't. I mean, I have some wild theories that just kind of spring to my mind just through your kind of your Cryptid Crew thing. Maybe it was Bigfoot. No, I'm just kidding. Right. But then there's also something that's kind of, I understand that the press releases all stated that there was no evidence of foul play that would lead police to believe that it was foul play, but it would make more sense to me than suicide, only because if she had went out there with the idea of her harming herself, like you said, those scent dogs would have been able to pick up on that. And while if there were, my personal belief is perhaps she did meet someone on the trail that kind of was able to kind of either lay in wait for her back at her vehicle or, what have you, and right. Then just kind of take her away from that area, because otherwise the dogs would have picked up some.
I had one of we were just up there not too many days ago, and I had spoke to one of the park rangers, and I'm not going to say his name, but his theory was, did she ever go hiking? He thought that she might be, just off the grid, living off the grid. But the abnormal thing, I believe, or the unusual thing was, understand her keys were turned in to her employer.
Mm-hmm.
And, when she left to come hiking to Alabama. But,
right.
I don't know that's just, did she have intentions when she came down here or not? Or, did she know how long she was going to be gone?
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that tripped me up too. Law enforcement, it was my understanding that is the main belief, was that she had intentions to just kind of check out. She had a safety deposit box where, she had spoken to her family, I believe, about what, that her stuff could be found there. The main consensus was that, she had quit her job. She had pretty much tied up all the loose ends for her, livelihood there in Marysville. And then she came down here and like you were saying, whether it was to live off the grid and just that she just didn't want to be bothered anymore, or who knows?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you know how many days they searched for her, the law enforcement agencies or volunteers?
I want to say I know in the release it said that they began to conduct what they quote unquote said a coordinated ground search. So a grid search essentially, for the following day of October 5th after they found her vehicle. But I'm not sure. It doesn't, the reports don't say too much of how many days or if it was even more than a few hours. I have fairly good confidence in our law enforcement partners. And I would imagine that it would be more than 2 or 3 days. But I have not read anything since then.
Okay. Yeah. I have not seen. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think this is more or less regional news, saying in this area and then up in the Ohio area, or has this made any national news that you know of?
I haven't been looking. I should say that. I haven't been looking as far as national news goes. Do I think that this could definitely be national news? Absolutely. I definitely think that this has the fact that, the Pinhoti Trail in this mountain range kind of goes, I'm trying to look for the word. It's not transnational. It intersects several different states. So I definitely think that it is something that needs to be looked at more closely. But I don't know that but then again, I'm in the news business. I don't make I don't make a big habit of going and searching for other news. I could do that though. I don't have princess fingers. Let's see.
Sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I believe the trail is maybe 130, 140 or 50 miles. So it's a pretty long trail that goes up into, Appalachian Trailhead. But yeah, when I spoke with one of the park rangers or park employees there, they were talking about, if you get off trail it all looks the same. And it does. It's like I said earlier, we talked about it. It's just rocky, wooded, and but if she's done this before, knows her way around. I'm not necessarily saying this particular trailhead, but the experience of backpacking and being outdoors, most people won't have a problem getting, navigating. And I live an hour and 15 minutes from there, an hour and a half maybe, the flyers, that are on the desk at the checkout or check-in at Cheaha State Park and on the back of the bathroom doors. And that is the only thing we've, knew about it or have heard about it. And I did not know if there's any other outlets that were putting this out, because I know the family wants some type of resolution to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read an article where the mother was just absolutely just pleading for her to come home.
Right. Do you know if anything like this has happened before or have read or heard?
I know that there was a little while back where there was a body found in Cheaha, where I think it was maybe 6 months, maybe a little bit longer ago, but it was a male. And he essentially, it was found that, not to be too graphic, he was found nude and down a ravine. And essentially what the police believe, after looking through after doing an investigation, conducting an investigation, they believe that he was under the influence of methamphetamines. And the officer that I had spoken to essentially said, whenever you are high on meth, you get extremely hot. So essentially what had happened was, he just kind of went out there and got extremely hot and took all his clothes off and started running around in the woods, fell down a ravine and got pretty grievously injured and could not move after that. So he just kind of stayed there.
Right. I believe I had I did a little research on that. I think his last name was Keith, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yes.
And I think he had been missing since, if I can remember correctly, maybe May of 2022. I don't know when he was found, but or how he was found. Do you know if a hiker or hunter or something found him, or if law enforcement?
I believe it was a dog. A hunter had his dog, and it's always the dogs, the doggies. Yeah, I think it was a hunter and his dog, and the dog just kind of stumbled upon the remains.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that that's not the case with her. And hopefully, like we said earlier, that the family can have some sort of resolve about this. But that goes back, like you said, dogs. I just don't understand why these canine dogs or cadaver dogs or whatever you want to call them that did some of the tracking never hit on anything because you've got a vehicle at the trailhead with her scent all in it and had just been in it previously. We know September the 24th after coming back from South Carolina. And like you said, stopped in Oxford. And I believe it's a camera caught her or recorded her. Is that right? Or was it did you say it was okay. And, so there was not that many days between the time she was at the trailhead and the time they started searching. I don't believe to lose any type of scent.
Right.
And it's been very dry, I know, in this area, and as well up that way this fall and summer. So, I don't believe rain had any influence on the tracking as well.
Yeah. Do you know if they went outside of the trail with the cadaver dogs? Like, did they, I know that they didn't catch any scent, but did they maybe go out, and if they did go over the trail, did they, how wide of a range as far as, a radius around the campsite or because they found her campsite, right, with her hammock and some of her belongings in the woods, correct, right?
Right. As far as I know, yes. I don't know the square, I guess, mile area. I know it was around 35 or 36, 37 miles of trails they searched. Now, I'm not sure if they're going by, linear miles, or if that's the total area they searched. But I will try to find that out. And if you hear of anything on that as well, please let me know. Like I said, I'm not quite exact if that's, like I said, linear miles or square miles or how big the grid was. I do know they had helicopters and they had drones and the dogs. And then I'm not sure about volunteers, if there's been another group up there to.
I do believe that other agencies were aiding them in the search as well, Calhoun County and the state park rangers and a few other, maybe even I'm not sure of this, but the ALEA, the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency might have went up there. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, I believe you're right. I believe they're the ones, if I'm not mistaken, were operating the helicopter. And you have, typically in those, you have a FLIR type of equipment, thermal imager that, picks up heat. So I'm not sure. I've read some stuff where, the leaves still haven't fallen off quite yet. So you've got the canopy of the trees that overshadows the trails somewhat, but I'm pretty sure the equipment that they use and the technology they have now can see through most of that.
I'm going back through the photos, and do you know if her backpack was actually found by her car? Because just in the photos, it was taken next to her car, but I wasn't sure if that was just moved and placed there, because that could also be an indicator as well.
Right. I don't know that. I'm not sure about that. But the orange and black, it looks like a walkie-talkie if you're looking at the picture. That's the personal locator transponder or beacon, that she had on. Was it on?
Right.
I don't know. Was it
right
there just for the picture?
Right. And also, if she didn't have the backpack on her body, and if the backpack had the personal locator on the actual backpack rather than on her actual person, that would also seriously skew data as far as where she might be located as well. Because they found the backpack, but not her.
Absolutely correct. Yes, that makes sense. So there's just so many different theories and until I guess any other evidence comes up or news of any sort, we can just sit here and get, like I said, I have a couple of different ideas, but I don't want to, if like I said, like you said earlier, if the family's listening, I just don't, want to go into detail about those or embellish any by no means.
Right.
So
And then the law enforcement might be tight-lipped now just because it's still an ongoing investigation, so it's hard for them to speak about anything that hasn't already been put out.
Sure. Yeah, and they did say there was no sign of foul play, and I know you mentioned that earlier. So, as far as they know, but yeah, we'll have to. This has been extremely interesting to talk about, and if there's something else that comes up, we'll have to do another follow-up episode on this if you'd like to.
I would love to. I would definitely love to, for sure.
I know we had some technical difficulties earlier in the week, and hopefully if we do something in the future, that won't happen. But
maybe cut the part about Bigfoot out.
Yeah, I might edit that. Well, that you're not the only one that has mentioned that as well, because what's so ironic about that, or so funny, I guess, not funny, but one of the trailheads that we were at Cheaha the other day had a sign that said "Seeking Bigfoot, take this trail," or so on and so forth. And I'm not going to mention the person's name. This was somebody else I talked to as well while we were in Cheaha. But I had asked her, I said, are there any cryptid sightings up here? And she was a little hesitant to begin with I just may have spilled it, but
no, you're good.
They were hesitant about saying anything until I told them, what I was doing. And then they started talking, and there's several sightings she's had reported to her, people talking, and an episode that's actually going to drop in the morning I'm doing is on that area, and some things that go back to probably the mid-90s. So, but yeah, that is not my answer
belief
for what's happened whatsoever.
I do know that there is a large following of Bigfoot here in the state of Alabama, only because I had the privilege of covering the past 2 Alabama Bigfoot conventions, and just the sheer name. Yeah, so there's a whole convention, and there's people who do podcasts, there's people who do cast layout as far as like the how they layer the caster in the or the plaster. I don't know. What I'm talking about, like the cast of the
plaster cast.
Yes.
Yes.
And there's plenty of those. There's plenty of, just different there's a large society of people here that believe that there are, call it Bigfoot, call it a larger than ape creature that lives in the woods. However you want to spin it, there is definitely a group of people here that firmly believe in it.
Yes, there is. You're exactly right about that. And there's been quite a bit of sightings on a certain website reported over the years too in Alabama. So I think over 100, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, and I could dive off into that on another episode. But you could definitely go down a rabbit hole when you start talking about that. I researched it for sure. But Ashley, I really appreciate you coming on. And like I said, if you hear something, or if I find out anything, or anything comes to the news, I'd like to do a follow-up episode.
For sure, especially if, God forbid, remains are found, or just to bring some justice to the family. Right. For sure.
Sure, absolutely, yes, and that's prayers for the family, no doubt. But yeah, if you for everyone listening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel out. And if you've had an experience or an encounter, anything unexplainable, or if you want to be on the show, shoot me an email at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless.
Thanks, Mark.